Thank you for joining me today on Paint a Beautiful Picture. This is episode number 279, Nurturing Each Other. Somehow in the human spirit, it's so easy to be critical. It's very easy as a parent, and we just kind of get into this mode. Why didn't you clean your room? Why didn't you do the dishes? Why didn't you take out the trash like I told you? Where did you put your backpack? Why didn't you put your shoes where they belong? Now everybody's going to be 10 minutes late because you couldn't do what you were supposed to. Yeah, it's really easy. I hate to tell you this, but I know that it's really easy to be critical of leadership. I hear people perpetually talking badly about the president, about the government, about what's going on in the world, about local government, about their pastor, about any kind of their leader. And oh, help me, don't I hear people going on and on about their spouses. My wife, nah, 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 nah. My husband, oh, wowza, wowza. The point being, it is so easy to be negative or nasty or critical. That kind of comes easy to us as human beings. So I'm going to ask you a question right off. It is not the challenge question, but it's an important one. How are you doing at having a critical attitude and it coming straight out of your mouth? Are you often really critical of your life, your children, your mate, your home, your leadership, your boss, your how you doing at that? Because lately, sometimes I've had some real issues myself. I understand how easy it is to go there. I really get that. So today we're going to talk about nurturing other people, notably our children. But let's be truthful, there are a lot of people in our world who need nurturing. I suppose it's a unique thing, but as a counselor, people come and they have troubles and they're really struggling to cope and they're sad, they're depressed, they're angry, they're frustrated, they're disappointed, they're practically hopeless. Um, yeah, and those people, they really need nurturing. And honestly, even if they got themselves into the mess in the first place, which is often the case with us humans, still that person needs nurturing. I recently watched a movie and there was a woman in it. She was a psychiatrist. Actually, she was amazing at nurturing other people, at making affirming statements and letting them know that even in the midst of the challenges, they could do this and they were going to make it. Let me say this to you. I've said it before and I will probably say it again, but I really want to say it to you today. You can do this. You can be a good parent. You can be a good mom. You can be a good dad. You can. I am not going to lie to you and say, oh, it's easy. It's a piece of cake. No worries. Oh, that's a bunch of baloney. It is difficult, but you can do this. And I am confident that you can. And I'm right here to help you with that. So, on this journey of developing as a human being and developing as a better parent and establishing a good relationship with your children and building a foundation in your home where everyone is safe and everyone is welcome and everyone is loved and accepted and nurtured, you can, in fact, do this. I really want you to get that message. You can do this. In fact, I'd even go so far as to say it would be a really good thing if you're in a position right now to say it out loud. I can be a good parent. I can be a good parent. Just let yourself know that affirming message is absolutely true and a good thing to hear. And hopefully you can say that to your spouse and they can say it back to you and maybe even teach your parents to say that to you. Just because you make mistakes or have problems, and everyone does not preclude you from being a good parent. And so speak those words of affirmation out loud to your own self. I can be a good parent. So, how do you nurture another person? We're going to go all the way back to infancy, to being a baby. You have this little bundle, and in the magazine or on TV commercials, they're so cute because you can't smell them and you don't hear them scream and cry for 6 hours straight. And you're not walking around bleary eyed from lack of sleep for days and days and days. It's a little different. Once you have your very own at your house, and suddenly you have to deal with this child, That's another story altogether. But we're going to talk about the positive aspects of infancy and that little helpless, tiny, adorable baby that so urgently, desperately needs you and needs your help. You really love them. And in spite of their vulnerability and in spite of their neediness, you are going to nurture them. You are going to hold them and caress them and pat them and rub them and feed them and burp them and change them and rock them and sing them to sleep and put them gently in the bed. Nurturing an infant is perhaps the clearest picture that we have of how desperately human beings need care. And just because they get a little taller or a lot taller and a little bigger or a lot bigger, that does not change. And it never changes. In caring for someone elderly, they remain in many ways very vulnerable. Even if you have an independent elderly person who's very capable of cooking for themselves and feeding themselves and paying their own bills and living in their own home, if you talk to an elderly person who lives alone and they are willing to share their heart with you, you will find a lot of vulnerability there. They are lonely. They do not sometimes have a lot of joy because there's no one to share anything with. There is a remarkable sentence that you need to get a hold of. Life is meant to be shared. So when you are nurturing someone else, it involves sharing. They may not be willing to share with you yet. You may have a 12 or 14-year-old who's not going to share much with you, but you share with them. You can literally share with them what you remember about being that age. And if you don't remember that age, get a clue and start thinking about it. Because maybe it was so miserable, so uncomfortable, so awful, you've intentionally forgotten. Well, there's your first clue, right? You say, yeah, I remember what it was like to be really awkward in my own body. And your kid might be like, well, I'm not awkward. I'm fine. I don't even know what you're talking about. It's fine. Don't argue. Just you're sharing, okay? I remember what it was like when some of the people I used to hang out with, I didn't really want to hang out with them anymore. We didn't have the same things in common as when we were little. We kind of developed new interests. So I had to look for new people to hang with, and that was kind of lonely for me for a while. I remember what it was like when my voice changed. I remember what it was like when I started growing body parts I never had before, and I was always wearing like huge baggy shirts, and I hated it, and it was so weird, and I started getting hair under my arms, and man, my mom was always telling me, go take a shower because you smell awful, and yeah, I remember all of those things. I remember what I wanted. I wanted to be older. I felt like I was finally a young adult. I should be able to drive. I should be able to go places. But I couldn't yet. I was still kind of in this limbo place. It was horrible. Yeah, share. And it's amazing sometimes, not every time, as we share, other people will share with us as well. If you've had an attitude of real acceptance and love and protection and nurturing throughout your child's lifetime, those challenging times might not be quite so hard because they're already accustomed to sharing with you at an open level. When they share things with you that freak you out, you need to be as calm as you possibly can. I remember my friend's daughter at 16 told her mom she was pregnant, and her mom said, well, that's impossible. You're still a virgin. And the girl laughed in her mother's face. She said, Mom, I've been having sex since I was 14. Because the girl was ticked that her mom was so clueless. And later, the mom was ticked that her daughter had been deceiving her for such a long time. They did not have a really great relationship, which was tragic because they both thought that they did. You need to keep checking up on yourself at how you're doing. Even ask your husband or wife how you're doing, or your co-parent if you're divorced, because they might see things that you can't see. And you better be willing to listen to them, because if you're going to nurture, tend, care for, protect, and provide for the spirit and soul of your children or of other people in your world, you need to know where your blind spots are. If you keep running people down and you don't know it, somebody needs to be able to have the courage to get up in your face and say, right here, you're in trouble and you can't even see it. They need to have that liberty to speak into your life, the truth that you need so desperately to do this well. You need to nurture with touch, even if it's just a pat on the back or a gentle rub on the shoulder. Honestly, human beings need about 20 hugs a day to be emotionally healthy. You need to establish that when your kids are really young so they aren't weirded out when they get a little bit older and you put your arm around them and you give them a side hug, or you literally give them a big hug, or you come up behind them and let them know that you are there. Just don't come out of nowhere, because I can't stand it when someone walks up behind me and say, here, I just wanted to let you know that you're important to me today. Give them a 1 second hug around the chest. You need to have physical touch. You need to have words that are positive. And let me tell you, for every negative message that you speak, they need 10 positive ones. Wow. Chew that one a minute. If you are one of those critical people who is constantly, A, you need to shut your mouth. Just like that. Yep, practice now. And B, you need to learn how to say positive things. I really appreciate this about you. I really admire this about you. I really respect this about you. And you need to be specific. I really admire your creativity. I really respect your ability to be patient. I'm really appreciative of how helpful you are around the house. It is very meaningful to me that you share your heart. It is very important to me that we have such a great relationship together. And if there are things I'm doing wrong or things I need to change, please feel free to come and talk to me. You need to have the freedom to have those kinds of positive, affirming words coming out of your mouth that are building up and nurturing the spirit of your children and others. But as a parent, very, very important. Here's why. The words that you speak to your children will lodge in their spirits and their minds. I have never yet, never, met a solitary human being in multiple cultures that has said to me, I don't remember a thing my mom and dad said. I just got rid of it all. I've heard thousands of people say to me, I can still hear my mother's voice say, hmm, hmm, hmm. Or I can still hear my dad telling me, hmm, hmm, hmm. Those messages stay. They do not leave. You are the most important person in your child's life, for good or for ill. And you get to make up your mind which one of those is it going to be. Learn to speak powerful words of affirmation that nurture your children's spirit. And then in action. You know, talk is cheap. Action costs us something. If you spend 2 minutes a day in your child's presence, I don't care what you tell me, you are not nurturing them. We're going to go back to the baby. If you spent 2 minutes a day with your baby would die. The end. And we know it. If you do not spend time with your children, you are not nurturing them. So, I'll never apologize for that statement, and I'll never change my mind, just so you know. You must spend time with your children. That's all there is. They need you, and you need to be there. We'll talk more about this again. I just wanted to give you the idea that is very critical, that you nurture your children. There are so many more areas, but we'll stop there today. My challenge question for you today is this. How am I doing at nurturing my children. If my kids are little weeds growing up wild as the dickens, running crazy, out of control, everybody can't stand being around them, my mom and dad are always on my back about the way they act, I'm constantly getting notes from school and the principal, and obviously my child is struggling. Do I need to be doing something differently in order to nurture their spirit? Thought-provoking questions, I hope. Please send me a comment, a question, a suggestion, even an email, and tell me what you think. It's been great having you with me today on Paint a Beautiful Picture. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker, all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.